It's time we talked about your teenagers.
Ugh, as if.
Your chicken teenagers, that is. Because there is this stage that your young chickens may go through where they can cause you some real stress and some real pain. They go from being these sweet, delicate, in many cases, snuggly little things to, well, biters.
Ouch.
Yes, you heard me. Biters. They peck, they bite, they latch on, they rip. It's painful, it's annoying, and in the worst cases, it can make you stop really liking your chickens. And that's a tragedy. So I've actually received messages from multiple people in the last couple of weeks asking me about this young chicken biting problem. Which really can suck the joy out of keeping chickens. And that's why I decided I should just put a quick video together. So today, I'm going to go over when you can expect your sweet little baby chicks to get into this demonic biting phase, why they're doing it, how to stop it, and best of all, what you can do to prevent it early on from happening altogether, or at least reduce it significantly. But first, one thing that's important to understand is that not every chicken keeper will see this biting stage, and in fact, most won't. And that's because teenage hens only bite you if they feel comfortable around you, if you're someone they trust and they think they can play with you. So if you're one of those people who spends time interacting with your chickens,
Hi, Peppa.
you're much more likely to experience this biting behavior in their teenage weeks. Whereas, on the other hand, if you really don't care about interacting with your birds, you've chosen instead to raise them in the traditional hands-off sort of way, you'll likely never experience this behavior. Your birds are much more likely to be a little bit flighty around you during this teenage time period instead. So, when does this teenage behavior start? And why does it start? The age biting starts can vary, but generally it starts between 6 to 12 weeks of age. And that's important because what happens to chickens in the natural world at 6 to 12 weeks of age? Any idea? They are weaned. Weaning is a several week process where mama hen essentially says, "Get out of here." And when you look at the research done on feral chickens living naturally in the wild, which is my whole approach, it's called the jungle method. But when you look at what happens to these young chickens at this age in nature, they tend to get run out of the flock entirely, which means, for the first time ever, they have to fend for themselves without the protection of mama or the adult flock. And they have to find another territory to make their own. To say that this is an incredibly scary, stressful, and dangerous time for young chickens would be an understatement. This is probably one of the worst times of their lives. So during this transitional period when they're no longer babies, but they're not full adults, when they're in between homes, territories, and when they're in between families, as if things weren't hard enough, they're also going through puberty. So in order to survive all this, young chickens go through a lot of physiological changes at this time. They're highly alert. Their hormones are going wild. And you'll see some strange behaviors corresponding to all of that, like biting. So what does this mean for your chickens? Well, even though your chicks weren't raised in the wild, their bodies are still going through the same changes they need to go through to survive in the wild. It's baked into their genes. So, behaviorally, one of the biggest changes chicks go through is that they tend to become extremely curious and exploratory during this time period. But being chickens, they use their beaks to explore. Their beaks are their hands.
Hey, Poppy. Poppy. Oh, that's Pippa. Sorry. Hey, Pippa.
So they become kind of hyper interested in details they hadn't noticed before, really anything that seems unusual for them at all. So, human skin, that's a strange texture. They're going to want to play with that. Freckles, moles, scars, scabs, fingers, eyelids, teeth, gums. Teenage chickens become hyper focused on all of those things and it's just automatic. They have to explore. And actually, one of my worst experiences with this was with my very first flock of chicks. I had one who loved to perch on shoulders. She was this little barred rock named Sandy. She would jump on my shoulder or my husband's, and it was adorable. We loved it until this biting stage. So she would then perch up on a shoulder, seemingly innocent, but then she'd go for an earlobe and she'd just latch onto it so hard, like she was trying to rip it off, and it was painful. But to a chicken, an earlobe, that's a strange thing. What even is that? It's worth playing with. What you really need to understand, though, is that when your chickens bite, this behavior is much more similar to puppy biting than it is to aggression. So they're not disrespecting you. They're not trying to dominate you. They're just exploring their world in a way that is completely age appropriate. And just like with puppies, this behavior, it's temporary. So what can you do to change this biting behavior? Well, really the most practical thing you can do is just to wait it out. Give them a few months to fully mature, and the biting behavior will just gradually disappear on its own. Once it goes, it doesn't come back. Your chickens will be sweet and loving and snuggly again. You also could work with your chickens the same way you would work with a puppy who's puppy biting, doing things like trying to redirect them, for example. If you're interested in taking that route, look up the dog trainer Zach George, use his methods. The problem with working with your chickens, though, is that there are just so many of them. Even if you only have a few hens, that's like working with a few puppy biting puppies at the same time, and working with one of them is hard enough. So that's why instead I recommend just wearing more clothing for a while. Just do your best to cover bare skin. So pants, long sleeve shirts, gloves. If your chickens are near your face at all, glasses or goggles are a great idea. There is just something about our huge, squishy human eyes that's enormously appealing to chickens at this age. And then you can try to avoid the pecks if you want, or you can just let them peck, let them bite. But whatever you choose, just don't overreact.
Ouch. It's such a cute.
Give them the time they need to outgrow it. Last tip. There is a way you can completely prevent this biting phase from happening, or at least greatly reduce the biting. Here's what you do. Raise your chicks from day one in a brooder space that's big enough that you can crawl into it with them, like a camping tent. And then every day, spend lots of time with them.
Well, these have been going pretty well, huh? You gonna come up here? You gonna come up here, Poppy? Okay. There you go, Poppy.
The reason this prevents that bad biting stage from happening is because from the very first day of their little chicken lives, they're getting a lot of exposure to your entire body. Your eyes, your mouth, your fingers, your skin, your earlobes, every freckle, mole, skin tag, whatever. Your chicks would have weeks and weeks to habituate to every little piece of you. So that when that teenage period does finally arrive and they get hyper exploratory, you're just not that interesting anymore. Most of your chickens won't bite you at all, and if one does, she'll bite you one time rather than 100 times. There's always that one. If you like this more natural approach to understanding chicken behavior, you'll definitely want to see my video guide to chicken etiquette. Click on it here, or you'll find it linked below. Happy chickening!